This is Louis, and if you want to support my channel, head on over to JList or head on over to Play Asia. Check out their summer sale, which is still going but will be ending soon as it's starting to head towards the end of the summer. If you don't feel like buying anything, support me on Patreon, which many of you do, and I hope that more people will. All the links can be found in the description.
So this is Louis, and this is going to be breaking news for August 6th, where you have iTunes, which is a distribution platform for Apple, Spotify, which is a podcast distributing platform, so audio, and Facebook, I believe that to be the world's largest social media platform. They've all banned InfoWars in the whole network, not just InfoWars' main channel, but the whole network, all within hours of one another. So this is a news event that is worthy of covering beyond what I'm just going to do here. I know that this is going to be a very long commentary, but this is going to be an introduction to what was the previous attempt to take down InfoWars. I recorded a commentary talking about that and the press because they were behind it. I recorded this the second week of July. The press is behind this. The press is who is actually responsible for this. They have been colluding in secret to have this done, and they successfully did it. It is David Brock, AstroTurf Democratic groups, politicians like Howard Dean, and members of the media that are behind this. So Facebook, iTunes, and Spotify doing this hours apart, this is because of the press, DNC AstroTurf groups, and politicians. This is something that should not be happening. This is, in effect, just censorship, mass censorship of a media platform that can be taken one of two ways, okay? There's only one of two ways to take InfoWars. Either you consider them a joke, and that's my position. I cite them on occasion, but Alex Jones is a fucking joke. He is an overly emotional, likely play-acting buffoon. There's many other people that work at InfoWars, but if you want to see Alex Jones as a buffoon, then that's how you have to take him. Why do you censor a buffoon? Why do you censor someone that is, as they say, a conspiracy theorist? You know who's a conspiracy theorist? Millions of people that believe Russia meddled in the U.S. election in 2016. You're all conspiracy theorists because there's no evidence at all to say that that actually occurred, that in any meaningful way, outside of some Russians buying some Facebook ads, outside of shit like that that had demonstrably no effect, and that can't even be directly tied to the Russian government as far as I can tell. If you believe in that as being the thing that threw the election into Trump's camp, into Trump's favor, you're a fucking conspiracy theorist. Does that now mean I can censor you? That I should call on Facebook and all the other outlets to censor you because you're a conspiracy theorist? So that's the thing. Either he's a buffoon or he's a threat. You have to accept that it's one or the other in the case of these fucking assholes that are censoring him. But that's the thing. It's that they see him as a threat. What's amazing to me is that anyone is going to defend what is clearly an anti-competitive practice on behalf of the media companies and the mediaites that are censoring Jones, who is himself a media outlet and a mediaite. That's what he is. He is a pundit. He is a commentator. He is a journalist. Hate him if you want to. He is a journalist. He has just as much fucking reputation as every other fucking cocksucker, bourgeois, piece of shit opinion giver and spin doctor that is all throughout the world. I hate journalism as a field. I hate it. And I've studied it in part when I was in college. But I hate it. You know why? Because every fucking journo is a colluding jerk-off. A liar, a spin doctor, a gatekeeper. Someone without any ethics whatsoever. That is my experience as it relates to journalists in the field of journalism. The Fourth Estate is a fucking joke. It's amazing to me that the founders enshrined their position in society in the Constitution. If only they could have seen today what it looks like. Again, mediaites and journalists and journalistic enterprises, media companies, are the ones that fucking got InfoWars banned from these outlets because he is a competitor. That's why. It has nothing to do with, oh, Sandy Hook, oh, some children died. Nothing to do with that. You want to sue him over that? Sue him over that. That's how you actually handle the situation as it relates to what he says. If he defames you, whatever, sue him in civil court. You don't collude with every other journalistic enterprise to get him banned on distribution platforms, which is what they did. That's what they did. They colluded to have him banned from Facebook, Spotify, and iTunes, which is a lot. That's a lot of reach. That's a lot of ears and eyeballs. Those are some big fucking companies. If you look at iTunes with Apple, that's probably the most powerful media platform in the world. I can't speak to the distribution range as it relates to Spotify because I've never used the service. I just recognize that it exists. But as it relates to Facebook and iTunes, with iTunes, that's half the fucking cell phone market. That's half the market right there. If not that, it's just Android, and boom, through Microsoft. And if Microsoft bans, or I guess, with Android, I guess it could be Google or Microsoft, but I'd have to look into it further, like how they actually control it, because I know that Gab got banned off of Android, and because of that, they're not on Apple phones or Android phones. So it is a 50-50 split in terms of control of the market. But if you have InfoWars banned from which may be what Spotify is. I don't know offhand. I don't listen to podcasts anymore. All I know is that this is a large amount of distribution, and I'll say again, journalists are the ones that called for this. They're the ones that have been colluding to have this done. I covered this, and that's what you're going to be listening to once I'm done speaking here. This is what happened in the second week of July. This exact thing, except for they failed. They failed to coordinate well enough to get Facebook, in that instance, to ban InfoWars. They failed to do it and flipped out over it. They absolutely flipped out over it. And that's why I covered it, because it was like, you just let the cat out of the bag. Now we all know you're colluding. But this time around, they succeeded. And I'm just going to say it's coordinated. This is coordinated. I can't imagine how I'm supposed to assume that this is not a coordinated effort. Especially as it relates to the media outlets who did it just hours apart. You're telling me that Spotify, Facebook, and iTunes, hours apart from one another, decided to pull the plug on InfoWars altogether. You're telling me that those media companies, those distribution platforms, had no communication between one another at all? I don't believe that. That's a lot of different media companies to decide that hours apart from one another. Less than a day. Less than a day. It's well beyond coincidence that that happens. I know that this is going to be spun, and I'm already seeing it spun that, oh, this is the leftists out there. These are the AstroTurf campaigns. And it's like, yes, in part. But the other half of this are journalists. They're the ones that coordinated to see this happen. That is absolutely what happened in July, and I guarantee you that's what happened this time as well. So these are Mediaites that are attempting to eliminate a competitor. That's being lost in this whole people flipping out about this, even though it's well-deserved people to speak out against this, as I am here. But this is anti-competitive behavior. It's not just a matter of, oh, the leftists are censoring us. These are journalists that are eliminating a competitor. Because like I said, you either think Alex Jones is a joke and InfoWars is a joke, and you don't take them as a reputable source, and that's how you see them, or you see them as a threat and a direct competitor. It must be one or the other. It cannot be both. And all of this is based on them taking him seriously. This is all about eliminating him as a competitor. That's what this is all about. Don't give me this bullshit about, oh, he's a conspiracy theorist. So are you! So are you! All of you push conspiracies and narratives and bullshit all the time. You're all gatekeepers. You're all liars. You don't give a damn about the truth. All you do is censor your own content and put out the facts that you want for people to see. You gatekeep constantly. That is the point of the fucking press. But I'll leave it there for this introduction, and I will basically allow this to then loop into the original commentary that I recorded in July, that I just edited the other day. And that's why I'm posting it right now for you to listen to, because this has already happened before. They tried this once before and failed, and now this time around they succeeded. Again, like I don't have the words to express myself as I want to right now in terms of what the implications of this are very serious. Because like I said, these are media companies that are acting in unison to eliminate one competitor. This is not just about, oh, left is censoring some outlet. This is anti-competitive behavior and collusion between different companies. There should be fucking lawsuits over this. There should be. Because detach this from media and put it in, fishing businesses or bakeries or coffee shops or whatever you want to. Imagine if you had businesses in any other industry where they coordinate, they collude between one another in order to eliminate a direct competitor between both of them, okay? This can't be fucking legal. This can't be. There has to be some kind of law against this. Because as I said, this is not just about censorship. These are competing outlets directly, successfully banning direct competitors from distribution platforms that they are also on. This is anti-competitive behavior, not just censorship. There has to be a fucking law against this. And if not, there fucking should be. But I'll let this roll into my previously recorded commentary on this, which is long, rambling, and dated, but I do think it serves a purpose to explain myself further in the fact that media companies, they're not anything to be respected. There is no ideal anymore for journalism. It's dead. All this is about now are cynical actors looking out for themselves. So we'll go into that now. So this is Louis, and it is early in the morning, and you're probably going to hear some noise in the background, so likely the audio on this is not going to be perfect, but I wanted to talk about something that's currently going on Twitter. For those of you that are not on Twitter or not paying attention to the platform as I do, there is a story that's breaking that I find funny, because what it shows you is that the powers that be, in terms of partisan left-wing journalism, I really don't like to frame it in that sense, although it is technically accurate, because, I don't see the open borders propaganda to just be about, like, the philosophy of anarchism or the idea that there should be no borders. It just seems to be, for a lot of people, especially in the media, to just be a rallying point to try to hope that Republicans lose in November, or that the wrong kind of Republicans lose and the right kind of Republicans win. Because I just read a think piece by right-wing galaxy brain, let me check the name, David Brooks. David Brooks is a right-wing intelligentsia galaxy brain, and he is an internationalist conservative. So for those of you that recognize what that means, you probably can guess what he stands for, what he believes. And in this article, which is besides the point, but I'm just going to mention it, The Quiet Death of Racial Progress, what he does is what Canadian conservatives did and what UK conservatives do, is they just concede the left's argument of, well, of course, there's institutionalized racism in America, of course, which, even somebody who's center-left, I don't agree with that. I don't agree, for example, that the Sheriff's Department in Erie County or the Buffalo Police Department have institutionalized racism. Are there some cops that may have a racial bias? Maybe, but it's probably because they work the beat and every fucking person they arrest or shoot is black or Hispanic. There's some diversity. And that's because this is a black majority city. So that's why so many people that are getting shot and arrested are black. So are you going to harbor some bias? Yes. Does that mean that the city, with its black majority council, its black mayor, and black police chief, is institutionally racist? No, it's not. And it's self-evidently not. So to David Brooks, maybe this was true in 1962 when your intellectual movement was birthed out of fucking neoconservatism and lunatic ideology, but it doesn't now, okay? I'm sitting in a part of town, of which is very common in this city, in Buffalo, where the majority is black. I am a minority here. The cops that are eventually going to show up and question why I'm here, because it happens at least once a week, and it usually happens when I'm in Buffalo, they're very likely to either be mixed race or just black. So, I'm sorry, but institutionalized racism is a fucking myth in 2018. It is a myth. The racism that I can see that exists is in places like major universities, Ivy League universities, that are actively discriminating against certain people because they're overachievers in the name of diversity, which is just Hispanic or black. Asians, as far as I can tell, are not persons of color. This is a problem in terms of conservatism and trying to find the truth of the matter, trying to understand reality as it is people like David Brooks who try to pretend as though that they're playing it both ways, but in effect just concede the worst element of the left, the collectivist left, the regressive left, the social constructivist left. He just concedes their arguments in whole cloth and does so as a right-wing galaxy brain. So as a center-left peon, I don't get it. And this is one of the things where I believe there to be a civil war between the nationalist and internationalist right. And I really hope the nationalist right wins, because even though they may be more uncouth and may include some bad people that I don't want to associate with, at least they don't look at the worst of the left, the absolute most ideological element of the left, and concede their fucking arguments for the sake of somehow seeming virtuous. Like, I don't understand why, as a conservative, you would agree that many institutions in the United States have an institutionalized bias against blacks. It's ridiculous for you to say that. I understand that that was a tangent, but I think that it describes the nonpartisan elite status of these kind of people. Like, I see people in the media, not just, oh, this person's left-wing or this person's right-wing. It doesn't really matter who you're talking about in the media. They seem to have just an internationalist bias, a very elitist, upper middle class, and as David Brooks says in his article, bourgeois norm bias. He literally says bourgeois norm in his article to describe bias. It's a bias of the media intelligentsia, the elite, that sit on high, they sit on their pedestal, and they believe they have found the truth, and that they are going to dictate and gatekeep to the rest of us. And so that's what is the topic of today, which is gatekeeping. I've said this many times, and I had a discussion once with my family, my mother and father, and I said to them, what do you think the press does? Like, what is the point of journalism? What is the point of the press? What is the point of media? And I said to him, do you think it's to accurately reflect reality and report on it, or do you think it is to gatekeep? And my mother, who's woke on the matter, as I am, didn't hesitate to say gatekeeping. That's the point of the press. It's to gatekeep information to the public. It's to take a selective grouping of information or a group of facts and to present them and them alone to the public. Now, it can there's a bias between whether we're talking about MSNBC or Fox News, but even in that way, a lot of people on Fox News, in terms of the people working within the company, they don't really have an issue with people on MSNBC and they can't, because if Fox News starts laying people off, they'll work at MSNBC. They don't really have that kind of political bias. They have a political bias in favor of the media, in favor of gatekeeping, because they are part of it. So they naturally have that bias. Even if people go into that system, into these companies, into journalism as a field, thinking that, oh no, I'm going to be the odd man out, it doesn't happen. You know, you're the bump that eventually gets fucking smoothed out. You get ground down until you are part of the media. So I do think that the press, the media, does have a bias, and it is in favor of the media. And what they don't like, what they really don't like, what they have a bias against is alternative media. Because alternative media is, one, a direct competitor to them, and two, constantly exposes their gatekeeping. That's one of the things that the alternative media banks on to win your trust and to win your eyes, is that they expose the mainstream media. So circling back all the way to the beginning of this, I woke up, went on Twitter, and Howard Dean is a good source for all this kind of elitist information like what's going on among the press, what's going on among the elite, the intelligentsia of left and right. What are they thinking? What's going on? And I've seen this tweeted out several times today by several different outlets that are all partisan left. But like I said, they are the AstroTurf left. They are the Clintonite left. They are the elite left. They are the Mediaite left. They are not the on-the-ground woke brigade. They are not the progressives, whatever. Like, they are progressives, but they are the Clintonite progressives. Like, I know that I'm kind of not articulating this perfectly, but I'm hoping that people can understand exactly what I mean, because there is a different grouping of progressives. You have your Young Turks, you have your on-the-ground woke progressive types, and then you have your upper-middle-class Mediaite, Manhattanite, cosmopolitan elite, those kind of leftists, like, quote-unquote. They don't really believe far-left shit. They just propagandize it for the sake of getting attention, winning over activists, and trying to push forward their own agenda, which is usually elitist politics or their own, self-interest, even profit in their own right, just filling their own pockets. I find these people to be incredibly cynical. I don't really think that they are the utopian dreamer idealists. I just think that they are the most cynical type of leftist, in that they are just looking to pursue their own self-interest, push themselves up in terms of corporate climbing and all that sort of thing. They just come off as very insincere and inauthentic, in my opinion. I think that many right-wing people or conservatives that have a bias in that regard may look at them and say, no, they actually believe this, blah, blah, blah. But I see them and I say, I don't know. They don't come off as authentic. I don't really think if they push for radical politics, they really believe it. It doesn't mean that it's not dangerous and it could happen, but I think they don't really care. They don't really have those beliefs. They don't really have a core, just like Clinton herself. They're just pushing certain politics for the sake of their own agenda, which is typically elitist sort of politics, which I think is actually different than the partisan left or right wing. Because if you look at the left-wing or right-wing intelligentsia, as I did with just that David Brooks article, do they really disagree? Do they really disagree? Are they really two different sides? When you have a partisan leftist rich person saying that we need to let in the hordes because they're better than the white working class and the white working class just needs to die, and you have the right wing, and there's many examples of this, saying the exact same thing. They're all intelligentsia. They're all elitists. They believe the same thing. They don't even disagree in terms of reasoning. They agree based on the reasoning. So you're going to tell me that there's this divide between the left and the right intelligentsia, the left and right elite, the internationalist elite? They disagree? No, they're both pro-mass immigration. They're both pro-EU. They're both pro so-called free trade. There's many things in which they completely agree. They walk in lockstep in agreement. I think that when people debate left-wing and right-wing politics, the internationalist left and right, they don't disagree based on my reading of it. Maybe there is some differences in some regard, whether it's, I was going to say war in terms of like the Hillary Clinton left and the George Bush right, but they're both neocons. So even there, it's like on the topic of war and intervention in the world, do they even disagree? You tell me. But anyways, what happened today was Facebook released a statement saying that they weren't going to ban InfoWars from their platform. So when they release a statement, that begs the question, well, why would you ban InfoWars? What are you talking about? This is out of the blue to me. I never heard anything about, Facebook trying to ban InfoWars and whether they should. I never read any articles. Maybe they existed and I just didn't see them, but I pay attention pretty closely to what's going on, even in the media. I never saw anything talking about banning InfoWars from Facebook. I imagine many people wanted that to happen, but that's active censorship. Where did this start? And as soon as I read that, all of a sudden every Mediaite leftist, who again I'll put in quotations because Where their politics are, I can't really say. I just know what they claim to be their politics. They came out in droves, bitching and moaning, complaining about this. And when you start reading through their tweets and reading through the articles that they're linking, you realize that the mainstream media, the media elitists, the blue check marks who write for all the mainstream orgs, they were actively colluding in private to put pressure on Facebook to ban InfoWars. This wasn't your typical PewDiePie-style smear campaign, as far as I can tell. This was behind the scenes. This was in private. This was journalists in private contacting Facebook, not smearing them in articles, but in their own time, privately colluding, contacting Facebook, trying to pressure them to force InfoWars off of Facebook as a platform. Not just ban Alex Jones, but literally ban the whole network. Ban everybody, including, I imagine, Paul Joseph Watson. So it would have been InfoWars in its entirety and everyone who works for them. By all appearances, they were doing this in private. And based on the reaction of everyone flipping out and saying that they were participating, they were colluding. So there very likely is another back channel journo list, an email grouping, and all that sort of thing, which we've seen in the past with these quote-unquote left-wing journos. They very clearly were using that to strategize how to deplatform, as they would call it, InfoWars from Facebook, and they failed. And what's brilliant about this is that they were so stupid to react in this way, because they should have wanted to bury this. This would have been the smart thing to do, because they failed. If they had succeeded, then you brag about it, because they show their own power. But in this instance, Facebook refused. Facebook released a public statement saying they would not ban InfoWars. And they also said, as far as I can tell, that there are other outlets like InfoWars that are biased, that produce quote-unquote fake news and fake stories. I would imagine that that is likely true about InfoWars, because they are ridiculous in many instances, that they do create propaganda and fabricate stories. I wouldn't put it past them to do that. I don't really take InfoWars very seriously in terms of their publication. I do link their articles and cite them as a source every now and then, because I have seen some good articles from them that, by all appearances, link to exactly what they're trying to say. And that's all you can. And that's all you should need in terms of citation and using an outlet as a source. Are they accurately representing something? Then use them. That's all I need in terms of a standard met, is source what you're saying, prove what you're saying, and I will use you as a source. So what happened here, to summarize, is that the journos, the blue check marks, colluded. They back-channeled to Facebook to pressure them to get InfoWars off of their platform, because they hate InfoWars, they hate Breitbart, they actively campaign. There's this account that Howard Dean retweets constantly called Sleeping Giants. And I don't know who these guys are. I just think that they're a Clintonite AstroTurf group. They're probably connected to David Brock, who's a Clintonite PR master, a spin doctor, as it were, who deals in big money campaigns, all AstroTurf campaigns that employ a lot of blue check marks for the sake of pushing partisan Democrat politics, or in many instances I find just partisan internationalist politics. But this account, Sleeping Giants, apparently participated, as they have in the past, with trying to censor InfoWars. And they also have just an active, non-stop, 24/7 daily op, as it were, against Breitbart, where they go after the advertisers that are on Breitbart. And they do this every single day. There's not a day that goes by where I do not see Howard Dean retweeting Sleeping Giants, who are going after Breitbart advertisers, and are very successful, by the way, at going after Breitbart advertisers. Usually once a week, they get one advertiser to pull out of Breitbart. But this is actually something different. This was actually them, rather than do it publicly in public shaming, that's their usual tactic, they actually did it in private. And the big mistake they made was, after they failed, was reacting and saying, oh, fuck Facebook, Facebook is bad for America, blah, 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 because they didn't listen to us, they didn't censor InfoWars. And now they're creating all kinds of propaganda that they're mass retweeting, and they're trying to push as a narrative. They're trying to push this as a story, and it's actually stupid because they failed. They failed to get Facebook to listen. So what they're actually promoting is their own powerlessness. They showed their collusion happening. They were outed by Facebook as colluding in private and pressuring them. That was smart on Facebook's part to do that, even though I don't like Facebook. That was smart of them to do, to publicly show that they were colluding and trying to put pressure on them to ban InfoWars. But they made the mistake of trying to make this as a narrative to shame Facebook because you just showed you don't really have power. Facebook didn't listen to you, and now you're trying to use, you're falling back on your other tactic, which is public shaming and propaganda. So what do I mean by propaganda? So here's a blue check mark. Jean Guerrero, who let's take a quick look to see who she writes for. KPBS, NPR, PBS. So she is a biased left-wing blue check mark, very bourgeois blue check mark, as they pretty much all are, who writes for a partisan, quote-unquote, left-wing outlet. I keep saying quote-unquote, but it's like, you're just an internationalist. You're not an actual leftist. Like, you believe vaguely leftist things, but it's always to the benefit of the internationalist elite. You know, whether you're a Koch brother or whether you are a Clinton, like, you still have the same fucking politics. You're still an internationalist, like, utopian capitalist kind of person. Like, you would even say, like, oh no, maybe I'm a socialist, but it's like, yeah, but you're pro-EU, you're pro-TPP, you're pro-corporatism. Is the TPP socialist or is it capitalist? Like, you tell me. It removes the individual sovereignty of nations. Like, what is that? As far as I can tell, it's just internationalist. It's just corporatist. And so she creates this story that is a fabricated story. She claims that Facebook is censoring her nonprofit news org. It's a partisan group. It is a partisan group. This is a politicized story that you're reporting. It is political propaganda. This is political propaganda. If I create a video, and I'm very motivated at the moment to do a story or a video on my own channel, commentary, where I show you how easy it is to propagandize. It's very easy to skew a commentary in one way or the other. You know, the thing is with my channel, everyone listening to me, the common reason I think people like my channel, other than the emotion which people find amusing, is the authenticity. That's the high mark of my channel, is authenticity. There are many channels that I find that are out there on YouTube to be inauthentic. A good example, and I don't mean to like shit on him, and I'm not, you know, trying to create drama or anything, but with Markiplier. Markiplier is a commentator that I find to be, and Boogie too as well. There's many YouTubers like this that I find to be pure persona. There's the authentic, and then there is the persona. There is the acting. And with Markiplier, in terms of his voice styling, in terms of his mannerisms, and his gestures, and his way of speaking, if I find someone to be inauthentic, I question if they actually believe what they're saying. Because if they're willing to put on an act in terms of their mannerisms, the way they speak, and the rest of it, I question whether they're just giving me the answer they think their audience wants, or the politically correct answer they think that there is going to drive views or get them likes and acceptance, or if they actually truly believe it. I can't tell. But the acting itself, in my opinion, says that there's a good chance they are not giving their true opinion. Because there's a lot of people like that, believe it or not. There's a lot of people in politics, in commentary, in punditry, that don't actually give their honest opinion. They just act as a persona, and they will tell you what you want to hear. They'll tell you what they think people want to hear, or what they think is the politically correct answer. It's like what Hillary Clinton said in that leak, where she has a public position and a private position. It's that. That's persona. That's not being true to what you actually believe and who you are. And in the case of Hillary Clinton, the reason she doesn't do that is likely because everyone on the planet would find her to be even more insufferable. But getting back to this tweet, Jean here says that Facebook is censoring her story about a 5-year-old girl forced to appear in an immigration court alone. And she says, because apparently balanced journalism is now political content. So, this is a political propaganda story. This is not a quote-unquote balanced journalistic story. This is political propaganda. This kind of shit was happening under Obama, under Bush Jr., under Clinton, under Bush Sr., under Reagan. This has been happening since the inception of immigration enforcement in the country. Bad things happen when you come here illegally. That has always been true. So stories like this have always existed. This is not a standalone newsworthy story. This is propaganda. You have a bias, you have an agenda, you have an interest, and you, like many others, including many on the right, who are internationalist conservatives, you are pushing this as propaganda for your own interest. This is not news. This is not you breaking a story. This is not balanced. This is political propaganda. So Facebook, in this instance, rightly realized, hey, this is not actually you breaking a story. This is you gatekeeping. This is you creating propaganda. This is you acting as you are a blue check mark. So we're going to demonetize your content. Now, I think that political propaganda should be able to monetize on Facebook. I don't engage in any kind of monetization or giving any money to Facebook because based on the analytics and the data that I've seen, you're throwing your money away when you advertise on Facebook. It's not worth anything when you advertise on Facebook. Unlike YouTube and other platforms, which have been shown not to garner much attention in terms of effectiveness of advertisement. But on Facebook, it's worthless. So even in that regard, who cares if you're not getting ads on fucking Facebook? Because it's worthless. But what she claims is that she's being censored on Facebook. By her own photo link below, that is demonstrably false. You're being demonetized. The last video I uploaded with the Sargon meme, that was demonetized because it included a Black Sabbath song. So the record label that owns that song demonetized that video and has claimed the advertisements on the video if there even are any. That's not the same as me being copyright struck and then my content either being blocked in all countries or being taken off my channel. That is censorship. Now, if I violated someone's copyright, it's a different story. But in this instance, demonetization, removal of ads, is not censorship. That is not censorship. You are not being censored. You've been demonetized. Because Facebook has a policy, apparently, that political propaganda can't be monetized. If you think it's falsely labeled, then just appeal it. But guess what? Just like on YouTube, I'm sure it's just like it is on Facebook, it's not going to be a great process. But the fact is that this is a propaganda story and that this is apparently their policy. This is not censorship. You have not had your article, your bullshit propaganda article, taken off of Facebook. It's just been demonetized. You can't advertise it. That's it. But this is the narrative. They are winding themselves up to push this narrative that Facebook is an evil company. And all of this is because they failed to have InfoWars banned from Facebook. This is the point. This is not a genuine outcry. This is not genuine anger. This is not authenticity in terms of a grassroots group of people trying to raise awareness or they're actually outraged about some event that occurred. This is fucking propaganda. This is the press. This is the media elite. This is a group of people with a shared interest that are mainstream, that want to see alternative media destroyed. This is them reacting and trying to fall back on another tactic to ban a competitor from a platform that they want to utilize themselves. This is them trying to ban a competitor. This is just anti-competitive behavior. They can, tweet it out all they want on their so-called personal accounts that they link all their fucking jobs to. They can pretend as though that they don't have a shared interest and a common bias in this way in terms of what they're actually pushing for in their so-called activism to get a fucking news outlet banned. And again, you can not think much of anything about InfoWars. I don't really. But the fact is that this is a group of people with a shared interest that are all mainstream, that are all on Twitter, that are all blue check marks, that are actively trying to silence a competitor. Why? Political bias and shared self-interest. These people are opinion givers. These are pundits, commentators, journos. Half of what they do is editorializing and propaganda gatekeeping. This is what they do. And claiming that about InfoWars, yeah, sure, let's concede it. It's true about InfoWars. They create propaganda. So do you. You gatekeep. You are gatekeepers. You are journos. You are liars. You are propagandists. You are shills. You are corporatists. You have your agenda. And all that happened was you failed to achieve it in this instance. You getting outraged on Twitter is just you falling back on another tactic because your first tactic, which was private subversion and manipulation of Facebook, that failed. And they exposed you. Facebook publicly released that you failed. So you are just falling back on another tactic because you failed in the first instance. And it's stupid because now you've been exposed. It's colluding. You were clearly colluding, which is ethically not supposed. You're supposed to be competitors. You're supposed to be acting as competitors, but you're not. You're not, because you have a shared interest. You have a bias. You are the mainstream media. It's why people hate you and don't trust you. You have a shared interest. You have a shared bias, and it is against alternative media. So I will leave it there, and I will hope that this commentary turned out well enough, even though I know it's been going on for quite a while, and I'll need to do some heavy editing, which is true of every commentary that I've recorded this week, and none of which have come out because I am fucking busy and constantly working. But I will hope to try to get this out for you to watch and enjoy when I can. Alright, thanks for listening.